Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the program Business Time. This is a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. And in the program today, we speak to economist Bechani Cheleni on what needs to be done for Malawi to tame the ever-soaring inflation. And also in the program, FEM pushes for quick commercialization of the agriculture sector. We have these and other stories. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome. This is Business Time, and our main story in the program today. For so long, Malawi has been grappling with the ever-rising inflation, seen at 25.8% as at November 2022. Now, the obvious reason is that Malawi remains a net importer. As if that is not enough, Malawi is heavily relying on maize, and each year that there is low supply of the commodity, inflation seems to take a supersonic speed. The question that has always been there is what needs to be done to tame the ever-rising inflation in the country. This is the question our journalist Justin Mkweu posed to economist Bechani Cheleni.
How have you seen the behavior of inflation this year?
Yeah, no, it has not been an easy job. It's been something that has been of concern to many of us. We have seen, mostly imported inflation. Global inflation has been rising, and that has also led to inflation on our own shores. We are a country that generally imports most of the commodities that we bring or that we need to use at the household level, maybe corporates, government. We import most of the commodities. Government imports through, of course, suppliers. And it's a year that we have not done very well in terms of our generation for foreign exchange, which has meant that we needed to devalue, and that generally meant that we are going to be importing at a higher cost in Malawi kwacha terms, increasing, of course, the prices of the commodities and in shops and in many other outlets. And so it has been very, very difficult because most of the inflation has not come in from from an endogenous way. It has been exogenous shocks that are not controllable within our own economic system.
We have seen inflation. We have proved, maybe it has been proved, that inflation really touches on a lot of things. Like, for example, because of a rising inflation rate, we saw that the Reserve Bank of Malawi adjusted upwards twice the policy rate with the aim of making borrowing expensive. Firstly, I just wanted to find out if you had to do your own analysis, like a quick analysis to look at how the economy has behaved and all since the first adjustment and the second adjustment. Do you think these adjustments have really helped?
Well, they may have helped in some ways. Especially when you consider people who would have wanted to borrow money for consumption purposes. Maybe they wanted to buy some second-hand cars from somewhere, and they found that it is expensive for them to borrow. In that instance, then they would have said, no, we are not going to borrow, but we don't have the actual data that we can say so. Yeah. But you may also remember that with the scarcity of foreign exchange and the expensiveness of the same, we have seen that people have not imported as much, so that might have also helped in a way. You might have noted that between September and October, inflation went up, yes, but it was relatively with a slower margin, which is quite good in that way, but it's not as impressive per se. So look, as much as it is a monetary thing that affects inflation in Malawi, but mostly it is structural. So there could have been some effect, but it may not have been as significant because of the structural issues. Where we are not producing, whatever you do with the issues of money variables, it may not be as effective. what is important is for you to look at the fiscal side should come in and help. That's expenditure. We saw austerity measures being put in place to help keep the same problem as well. Again, we may not say that they helped or they did not help because we have not collected the data for us to be sure about that. But one may actually begin to suggest that if we did not do those things, if maybe the country did not do those things, maybe the problems would have been even much deeper.
What is the solution for Malawi in terms of rising inflation as of now? Because the authorities have been saying that it's the war in Ukraine. It's mostly that has been the narrative. It's the post effects of the COVID pandemic. Now the COVID pandemic is still there, though moderate now, yeah. And the war in Ukraine does not show any sign of ceasing. What's the solution for inflation rate now? Let's start with short term, medium term, and then to the long term.
Look, for the short term, it's difficult. You're asking me to look into the nitty-gritties of something that I have to be looking at in a hidden room somewhere. But I'll tell you that, look, I think for me, there are low-hanging fruits which we have to actually take advantage of. Mega farms, it's for me a very, very short-term solution, commercial agriculture, because I mean, if you're going to harvest something, you just need about 90 days for most of the commodities. You need about 90 days you are harvesting, or maybe at most 120 days you are harvesting, and within that period you can deal with the shortage of the foreign exchange. I'm saying so because remember that most of our inflation is being imported.
Yes.
So we need to have enough foreign reserves in order for us to import commodities at a cheaper price, because we're not a country that should be happy when there's a devaluation. We are not producing. We are a country that should worry when there's a devaluation or a depreciation, for that matter. So with a depreciation, it means automatically that there's going to be inflation. So we need to avoid a depreciation. We need to avoid a devaluation. So how we avoid a devaluation and or a depreciation is for us to look at the supply of the foreign exchange. Let's bring in the foreign exchange through exports. So the quick wins are very, very important. There are those low-hanging fruits which we must take care of, and some of the low-hanging fruits are maybe on the fiscal side, that maybe some sacrifices need to be undertaken. Things like travel of some senior government officials need to be cut to save the foreign exchange. When you have saved that foreign exchange, that's when I think that the imported inflation is going to be dealt with. In terms of the food inflation, we need to produce as much as we can. Maize, a lot of maize we must produce. Ndio also, people are mostly in Malawi, people eat a lot of fish, of different types. So we also need to, emphasize on aquaculture, fish farming. We need to emphasize on that so that at the end of the day, people are able to access food at a lower price relatively. So the same thing should happen, that farmers should be protected. I hope ADMAC wakes up very soon.
Now, as Malawi has been touted as an agrarian economy, there has been less that has been done towards commercialization of the agriculture sector this far. A larger section of producers in the economy are subsistent farmers. Now, a local firm transforming agriculture through diversification and entrepreneurship has recommended massive investment towards commercialization of the agriculture sector if Malawi is to heavily rely on the sector as its anchor of the economy. Our journalist Chimwemwe Mangazi reports.
Lombe says horizontal and vertical diversification is effectively done by medium-scale farmers because their risk appetite, especially to try new things, is high.
There are two reasons why we also need to start seriously looking or rechanneling our interventions on commercial farmers, medium-scale farmers. Firstly, because medium-scale farmers have the ability to produce more, so productivity obviously on their side is not an issue because they don't use the hands, they don't use hoes, they normally use different mechanical means of producing. Secondly, because it is the medium-scale farmers that have got the ability to diversify. The reason being that they can their appetite for risk or their risk appetite is high. For one to diversify from what they have already been doing to something new, it means that person is taking a risk because it's going into a new terrain. So only medium-scale farmers have got the ability to try something which smallholder farmers cannot try. It is very difficult to convince smallholder farmers to venture into a new terrain. So if we are to really sustain our momentum in diversification, obviously we need to critically involve medium-scale farmers because of their high-risk appetite for diversification.
Agriculture expert Leonard Chimwaza concurs with Lombe, saying relying only on smallholder farmers is not good because of issues to do with land availability and challenges in access to production inputs and finance that small-scale farmers face.
Relying only on the smallholder farmers isn't that good because of issues to do with the availability of land, but also challenges in access to production inputs and also finance. Because most of the smallholder farmers in Malawi, their land holding size is around 0.4 hectare per farmer. That's the average land holding site. So you look at the production that can be obtained from this small piece of land cannot suffice even the domestic or the external markets. But besides that, just because the smallholder farmers are not organized, then they always find difficulties in accessing finance to support their production. So that's the more reason why it is indeed wise and proper to consider small and medium enterprise or agripreneurs, so that they should take ahead the agricultural development or investment sort of, because most of the SMEs, they're always organized. And they're always organized, they are registered, and their access to finance and production inputs is always good, to the extent that even the financial service providers usually prefer to work with the SMEs and the partly farmers who are organized like in cooperative and associations, because the risk is always manageable in SMEs and the farmer-based organizations in this regard, the association and the cooperative, unlike individual smallholder farmers. So it is indeed proper to consider working with the SMEs and the partner farmers who are organized in the association and the cooperatives.
A recent Malawi Economic Monitor published by the World Bank holds that a more robust and vibrant rural economy is needed to address Malawi's economic difficulties. The World Bank suggests that a vibrant rural economy, stimulated by improved policies and better targeted investments, could catalyze the economy as a whole, alleviating many of the macro-fiscal imbalances.
Remember, this is Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. My name is William Kumwembe. We'll be right back. And when we get back, ICT experts speak on the need to intensify effort and investment in the sector if Malawi is to get to where it desires by 2030. Now, in other business news, one of the country's insurance firms, Smile Life Insurance, says it is poised to post good tidings for the year ending December 31st, 2022, despite challenges and volatility of the economy. This is according to Sten Singo, who is Chief Executive Officer for Smile Life Insurance Company. He was speaking when the firm hosted its brokers and other partners for a dinner in Blantyre last week. He explains in this interview.
The rationale was that it's been a while that we interacted with our clients, because as we are aware, the past 2-3 years we had the COVID pandemic, and because of health regulations we could not gather where we are more than 100 or so. And for the past 2 years, therefore, we did not meet our clients because we normally host our clients on an annual basis during the festive seasons. Yeah, so now that it appears that the COVID cases have gone down and government lifted the sanctions, we decided that we needed to meet our clients to thank them for their loyalty and their business. This far, the figures as at November are indicating that we are going to make a substantial profit in the current circumstances. Because you are absolutely right that the economy is so volatile because of one, the COVID that is now over, but then the Ukraine war and generally cost of items has gone up, and we had an inflation a couple of months ago at 25%, the devaluation of 25%. That has made business very tough. But despite that, we have made a profit on our technical book, because normally insurance companies make profits based on their investment book and technical book. But as you are aware, Smile Life has only been in the market for 13 years. So we don't have that huge investment portfolio to write home about. But our technical performance has been very good because of our strong underwriting principles and because of the service level deliveries that we are giving to clients. So we are going to register a profit. The future holds is very promising. I mentioned during my speech that some of our senior members of staff are not with us. They have traveled to Lilongwe, where they are making a presentation. There were about 49 companies that participated in that project, and then at proposal stage there were 16, and out of that they've selected 6, and Smile Life is among the 6. And we are very hopeful that they are going to be successful. And if that happens, then we are going to reach out in terms of financial inclusion, where we are going to reach out to people in the rural areas. And as Smile Life, we are going to take to the rural areas 3 covers: funeral cover, credit cover, and hospitalization for people who would not otherwise have had access to insurance. Because as you are aware, insurance normally is accessed by people in the urban areas or peri-urban areas. But with that project, it's going to enable us to reach out to people in the rural areas. And that's where the numbers are. In the past financial years, the past 2 financial years, we had heavy claims arising from COVID. I remember one client, we had to pay about 500 million from one client on COVID. Yeah. So our claims ratio in 2021 went as high as 30-40%, but this year we are hovering below 20%. So we are very happy that there's been a marked improvement.
Well, that interview also brings us to the end of today's edition of the program Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. My name is William Kumwembe. Always remember, if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. Stay safe and bye for now.